was thinking about how I wanted to start this, and I thought it would be kind of fun because I saw you perform at the most recent time, I believe, was the Laugh Fest show.
Okay.
I think the Dirty Show is what it was called. And I believe you opened for it, or you were the first comedian to perform. And there was this guy right in the, like, almost immediately in front of the center of the stage, like right in the front row. And just about every performer that came up just, like, kind of picked on him a little bit, like did a little bit of crowd work. But you were the first one to sort of initiate that. And I thought that was so funny. And I just, like, there was something about the way that you did it that sort of made it seem like you had done some crowd work before, like that you were used to sort of like poking around at shows and trying to find somebody to kind of mess with a little bit. And so I kind of wanted to start off with that. Usually we kind of get with like how you got your start doing something, but I kind of just wanted to touch base on this at first. Because is that like something you do when you, like, before going into a show, you're like, how can I find somebody in the crowd? Or is it just sort of like, oh, you see him, he's doing something, you think of it in the moment, and then you just decide to say it? Like, how does that work?
Usually depends. So usually, like, I like to get to my shows pretty early and watch the crowd, fill it in, because I like to, like, feel off the crowd, see what kind of crowd I'm gonna be dealing with. Right. Drunk people or people who just like, okay, I'm here. So vibe off of them. And usually I do, like, if I see somebody that I notice, like, I'm always people watcher. Like, if I see somebody, like, one time I saw a guy eating onion rings, but he was, like, cutting it up. So when I got on stage, I pointed that out, like, hey, why you think you're better than us? So, but yeah, sometimes if I see little things, I pick on it. But other times, I just go up there and I'm just like, hey, you look interesting. What's your deal?
Right.
You get some crazy responses sometimes.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I want to come back to that later. I was just sort of curious, the mindset. But I guess we'll start off. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate you. So I guess let's kind of get the ball rolling starting off with that. Tell me how you kind of got started in comedy, or where you were like, oh, maybe this is something I need to do. Did you remember, like, when it sort of clicked with you? Yeah, so
basically, like, all my life, people have been telling me, like, I should be a comedian, I should be a comedian. And I always say, I don't have jokes, I have problems. Like, this is real problems, this is not funny, Right. And I would just brush it off. I never thought about being a comedian, whatever. So about 2000, was it 18, 19? No, 2019, because it's my third year. So 2019, it's like 18, 19, just a really rough year. Going through a breakup, losing my apartment, and just, like, really just not a good space in my life. So I connected with a friend of mine. We were at his brother's graduation, and he was talking. He was like, yo, we should just sign up for open mic. And he's like, oh, Dr. Grins does open mic. I was like, okay, all right, sure, whatever. And then I talked to another buddy of mine. He was saying the same thing, like, yeah, Dr. Grins does open mic. So they're putting that out there. So I'm just like, okay, Dr. Grins open mic. So I look into it. And I said, forget my buddy, because he's taking all day. And I just signed up. I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I heard you guys do open mic. He's like, all right, this is your date. And I remember the date because it was my grandma's birthday. So it was August 1st. Nice. And he was like, you get 3 minutes. And then, like, as the time came closer, I'm nervous. Getting nervous. Never been on stage before. I don't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to talk about, if it's going to be good or what. Just nervous. And so I invited everybody. I was like, hey, guys, I'm going to try, stand up and stuff like that, And so I went there, and I had only written one joke. And, like, the rest of it, I didn't know what else I was going to do. I thought I was just going to shit my pants on stage or throw up. So I wrote the one joke. I did the one joke, and it hit instant. I'm like, oh, okay, they like me. So I'm like, fuck, I got, like, 2 minutes and 45 seconds to like 3 minutes. So it's like this group of kids just sitting in the front row, and I'm like, oh shit, what's up? The Jonas Brothers are in town. So I just start fucking with them, and then there was another guy off to the side. He looked really odd. I start fucking with him, and then he was like, oh, you're at 2 minutes. I was like, damn, that was fast, like my sex life. And just then I just finished it off, and it went well. So that's how it really started. So,
nice.
Hell yeah.
Do you remember what the first joke was?
The first joke was, I still use it to this day. It was, I started off, because it was my grandma's birthday. So I started off, like, giving back on my grandma. I was like, yeah, I live with my grandma. She's the type of grandma that can compliment you and insult you in the same sentence. Like, Brianna, she told me the other day, Brianna, you look cute with your fat ass. And so, that went off well. And so yeah, it's one of my favorites. I keep with it. I think about getting T-shirts made with that on there. So
nice.
Yeah, clever.
So, right on.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, I guess if that first joke, it hits, and you kind of get the sense that, oh, that joke worked, let me keep going with this. Do you remember the sensation you got from the laughs, just like that first initial hit?
Yeah, I was like shocked. I was like, oh, they're laughing at me. Like, okay, like it's just a room full of people, Grizz, and everyone kept telling me like, well, Grizz is a good place because people pay to come, because I didn't know nothing about comedy, just what I seen on TV. I didn't know like the business or logistics or whatever.
Yeah.
And people were telling me like Grizz is a good place because people come to pay comedy. Usually when people come to pay for comedy, they're there to laugh.
Right.
So everyone was telling me, it's always a good room, but it was packed. Like all I saw was like a light shining in my face and people. Like I was just nervous as hell. But yeah, when the joke hit, I was like shocked. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, you can hear the nervousness in my voice and stuff like my voice was shaky and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was a good feeling.
Right on.
Hell yeah.
Nice. And I guess would you say, because when I hear, I'm not myself. I'm not a comedian, but I listen to a few comedy podcasts here and there, and kind of know. I feel like probably enough to get by, I guess, in a conversation, maybe. But can you describe it, like how it hooked you in? Like, are you sort of addicted to that laugh, maybe more so than even before you were a comedian?
Yeah, I like the attention. Yeah, so it's like just to see them laughing. It's like, oh hell yeah, that's a good feeling. Like they're laughing. They're laughing like at me, but not like at me, they're laughing at something like, oh, I can make people laugh, like especially a room full of people that paid, and they have no idea who the hell I am, it was crazy because it was my first time, and then he put me first. I was like, you son of a bitch, like, what the hell? But yeah, it's a good feeling. Just being on stage in general is a good feeling. So.
No, I like the way you said it, where like people, they were laughing at you but not at you. Sure. Did it take you a second to sort of find the distinction between the two?
No, I think I picked on it instantly. It was like, well, it depends with the joke, but that's the part of being comedy. You have to make a joke. You have to be able to joke about yourself. Like people laugh. Like I tell jokes about me being fat and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, they're laughing at me, but like I'm laughing at myself because hey, it's my truth. And so,
right.
You just can't be no bitch.
Hell yeah, very cool. So I mean, where did it go from there? You do this show, or this open mic. You got 3 minutes, with maybe 15 seconds going in, and then you found the other 2:45 from there. Like. Where do you take that? I mean, when's the next time you're on stage?
Oh, so after that, I was on the high. Like everyone was like high fiving, like, "Oh, you were awesome." There was like, "There's no way that was your first time." I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not lying. And it was funny because everyone after that kept going, "Hey, this is my first time." Even like the headliner guy, they were there to see. It was like, "Hey, this is my first time." So everyone kept feeding off of that, but I actually waited about like 2 weeks before I got back on stage because I was still wondering, like, okay, is this something I want to keep trying, or is this some, like a one and done thing? Like, hey, I did it off a whim. So I was looking up, and someone put me in the Michigan Comedy Network, and so I was looking up like other open mics because I wasn't familiar, and so I signed up for Make It Spicy. So my second show was at Make It Spicy, which is they do it at Mulligan's Pub on Sundays at 9 p.m. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah, so that was my second spot, and that went well too. So
right on. Yeah. How is Mulligan's for like a comedy space? I'm only really familiar with it as far as like a band and the bar too. But.
Yeah, it's nice because it's that nice little closed off, intimate, private area, but they got like the upstairs too. Sometimes it gets really busy and stuff. I think, now that it's hotter out, we'll get more people in for the comedy. Yeah. But as a comedy, it's nice because, it's like, it's intimate, but when the room is packed, it's like you can really feed off the crowd and have a good set. I highly recommend that show to a lot of especially newer comics, it's very good.
Right on. Cool. So, I mean, where aside from just like looking around on the internet, where are you kind of trying to find places to perform, or where do you find that you get the buzz going, like where you can find people that might come to see you, or places where you could get in and build an audience?
That's when you start with the open mics. You just keep going there and trying to build your name up, and then I started doing some traveling, new comedy, just trying to get my name and my face out there. So I would go to like shitty places in Michigan, like 2-3 hours. Like I swear I was like the only black person in the town. So, but I'm like, hey, I'm dedicated to this. I'm motivated. I want to do this. So, you know, and it paid off well. So, but I started getting booked at this, and then you just start putting out clips and stuff like that and trying to, because at first it's like your family and friends are going to support you, but then it's going to get to a point where they're like, okay, you're okay, we get it, you want to do this, you know, and especially if your career is not taking off, like, you know, they're like, okay, you keep doing these, I'm not going to keep coming to every show or whatever, so that's when you have to like start promoting yourself, start putting out clips, start, you know, just keep putting out clips and stuff like that. And so I connected with this guy, comedian James Brown Jr. Yes, that's his real name. And he has a spot called the Ambrosia Theater. And so I seen he posted in the Comedy Network. And he was like, hey, I'm doing a clean comedy show. Never done clean comedy. But I was like, oh, I could try it. You know, it seems fun. And it was paid. It was my first paid gig. And so I messaged him. And he, not knowing who I am, he was like, all right, cool, you're on. So he came and seen me at an open mic, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're funny. So I did the show, and it went well and stuff like that. And so he just kept putting me on the shows. And as he kept putting me on the shows, more people started seeing me. And that's when I kept networking and kept doing the open mics. And it was like, hey, I'm going to be on this show. Come see me. So you really just got to put yourself out there and network. Like, I go to a lot of shows, even if I'm not performing, I just go there to support. You know, so I could just get my face and stuff out there. And sometimes they be like, hey, you want to do like 5-10 minutes? Like, oh, okay, yeah. So, you know, so you just got to put yourself out there.
Nice. Well, I want to get into a couple different aspects of comedy. I want to get into some of the community based around it, and then I also want to get a little bit into like your joke writing process and things like that, and what it's like on stage for you and stuff. But let's talk a little bit about the community at first, because like going off of what I know about, you know, performing as far as playing in bands, like I play in a couple of bands, have been for a while, and there's always been that local scene, you know, like the West Michigan bands, maybe based on genre or whatever, but ultimately everybody's in it for the same purpose and goal, so you get to know everybody, and which I assume is pretty similar in the comedy world around here, Grand Rapids, maybe tie-in. I know there's some shows in like Holland and Muskegon that happen to. Tell me where you've sort of found your place within the local comedy community, and what are some of the things that are beneficial to having like a comedy community with like locally that you found?
Right, yeah. I finally grew into the comedy scene like pretty fast. You know, people like really liked me from the jump. You know, they're like, oh, you're funny, and so started adding people, and then I just started going out more, and you know, forming friendships, and kept doing shows, and so became close with a lot of people. So you know, and so it is important because you know you need. Like, it takes a village, no matter, like, I hate when people say, I don't need nobody, I can do this by myself. And it's like, we all need somebody, you know? Like, stop, you know, we all need people to be successful or to be, you know, whatever. We need people. And so the comedy community is good because you can meet a lot of really great people who, like, outside of comedy, you know, like, you form friendships and relationships. Like, there's people I consider my brother and my sister, you know, because we've bonded and formed these close relationships, and I could confide in them and they could confide in me, and you know, it's always, you know, it's a good feeling. So yeah, I found my way in there pretty quickly, and I formed some pretty good relationships, and I got it's a pretty good thing, you know. And it's very welcoming, you know, even new comics, you know, like, just be yourself when you come around. You know, there's some new comics that try to fit in. They be like, oh, yeah. And they rub you the wrong way. And it's like, okay. It's like, you're a little weird, so.
Do those people tend to figure out that maybe? Like, if they try to join, like, the comedy scene or something, and they kind of maybe overstep a little bit initially, like, trying to fit in or trying to, like, sort of show that they belong? Do they kind of figure that out over time? Like, oh, hey, maybe I got to do something a little different.
Yeah, because there's some comments that would like point you out, like, dude, chill out, you're doing too much. Like there's some comments that are very me. Like, I don't like to hurt people, but I just be like, you know, it's just like, just be yourself, you know. Because people message me all the time, like, how do I do this? And I just like, just be yourself, you know. But yeah, there's some people that like, there's like really brutally honest, like, dude, you're weird, you're, you know, just like really mean. And I don't like to be mean, but most of the time, some people figure it out. And then it's like you find where you fit in at. Like, you know, there's different scenes and stuff like that. Like, we're all one big scene, but there's like different cliques and stuff like that.
Yeah, that
and
makes
we all
sense.
got the same, you know, it's like, hey, you know, we don't fit in with them because they smoke weed or something after shows, and we like there's comics that are like really educated, like go to school and stuff like that. So they tend to hang out with each other because they have something in common outside of comedy.
Yeah.
And so there's like the church people or stuff like that. So it's like, you know, you see all these people, but you can always have like these individual groups as well. So, you know, basically just get in where you fit in. So
Right. That's interesting. I like the idea, because we talk about cliques within like the music scene and whether or not they're a good or a bad thing. I personally don't see an issue with having, you know, like little cliques, you know, as long as there's no
like drama, like or
like
the college kids versus the non-college.
right. Or like say, like the people that smoke weed were just like, oh, we only want to hang out with comics who also smoke weed. You know, I don't really think there's necessarily a place for that. But if you can find that common ground or whatever, and form those relationships, I mean, that's a beautiful thing too. Do you like I guess tell me if there's any like weirdness to that clickiness. Do you see it? Like, are there any comedians out there that are very like, or somewhat like gatekeepy, I guess? Do you ever find that? Because occasionally you see that in the music scene.
Yeah, you see it, and like when I see it, I try to just ignore it. Like, my idea is like I get along with everybody, you know.
Right.
Well, you know, at least I hope I do. But you know, they could be talking shit behind my back. But like for the most part, I try to like get along with everybody, you know. I'm a people because like I see something in everyone. Like, you know, people be like, well, why do you hang so close with this person? It's like, because this is a good dude. If you ever take the time to talk to him, he's a good person, you know, besides what he says on, you know, it may not be that funny, but he's a good person. So, but it is the ones that like get like big headed or think like they're above people and stuff like that. And it's not the way to be. You know, you got to be humble. Just be a good person. So, but and then it could be problematic because then it'll like make like those people will represent whatever clique or whomever they are hanging with. Because if you are, you know, associated with one douchebag, then everyone's going to think you're a douchebag.
Right.
And so I just tend to do my own thing. Like, I have my close friends and stuff like that, but you know, other than that, when I'm out, I'm speaking to everybody. Hey, how you doing? All right, how you doing? You know, just as I know, like, hey, I'm neutral. I don't care about what's going on. I just want to make people laugh and go home. So
Yeah. Right on. Do you think like who are some of your influences when you were thinking about being a comedian or getting into comedy, or did you even really like think about comedy like that when you first like got on stage? Like, did you have influences, or were you into comedy enough to be influenced by people?
No, I love comedy. Like, I used to watch comedy like all the time. Like all the specials that would come out. Like I would just sit there and watch. Like, I love comedy. Like, I would just laugh. I love to laugh, and I just never thought like, oh, I'm gonna be like them one day. You know, I never did. I always wanted to be a police officer because my grandma was a police officer. So I was like, I want to be a police officer, but you know, just kind of fell into this. So, but. Now that I'm on stage, like, some influences are like Bernie Mac. I really like Bernie Mac a really lot. And so, like, he's like maybe one of my biggest influence. Him and Richard Pryor.
Oh, okay.
So,
were you, when you first started to perform, and the thing I hear a lot on comedy, like a comedy podcast, is that people are, you know, kind of doing somebody else first when they get on stage before they sort of find their own voice. Does that sort of relate to you? Maybe like the first few times you're on stage, you're kind of maybe doing a little bit of Bernie Mac, or like your voice is kind of filtered through like your version of like Bernie Mac's comedy or Richard Pryor's comedy. Like, did it take you kind of a second to figure out how you spoke on stage or what you were comfortable with on stage? I guess?
I never like emulated. Like, I never like you know, I never went on stage doing that because like I know that's a no-no. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know people watch a lot of comedy festivals, so if you see that, they be like, because I see some people do jokes, I'm like, I heard that. Yeah. So, but like, no, it's like it takes a while to get comfortable on stage. So when I was on stage, you know, starting off, I didn't know who I was or what I was doing. I was just doing weird stuff, just standing still with the microphone, telling the jokes, and you know. But the more you do it, you find you get comfortable. You just find who you are. Like, sometimes I'll sit down on stage. Sometimes I'll just stand there with my hand in my pocket. Like, you know, you just find your own, or hold the microphone stand. You know, you just find whatever fits for you. You got to find your comfort zone while you're on stage.
Yeah.
So, but there's some people who like try to come off and do like other comments like intentionally, and it's just like, stop, dude.
Yeah. Do you think that's because they haven't found their voice yet, or do you think it's from I've seen this be successful, so maybe if I try to do this?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Like, I've seen this work, and it's usually like guys who are not like really. How do I put this in a nice term? Because I don't want to be like who are not like really popular or something like that, and so they'll tend to like pick on this persona, and it's just like, dude, no, you're emulating Norm Macdonald or something. You know, it's like you know, don't do that. Be yourself. Like, we know what you're trying to do. So yeah, you get those every once in a while.
Yeah. Do you find that maybe there was a moment somewhere, like over the course of the first year that you were doing stand-up, where it clicked? Like, you told a joke that maybe was like a story you had or just something about you, like in your personality, and people responded to it, and you're like, oh, maybe I need to draw from like real life experience or from like, you know, my own life and share that with people, like find my story and share that. Is that something that when did that sort of click with you to just like be yourself on stage?
Yeah, because when I first started doing like paid shows, there were a lot of them were like clean shows, and so it was like church shows. So I was just like doing jokes based on what I know growing up in like a Baptist church and stuff like that. But you know, I started doing more like raunchy shows, and it's like, you know, when you depending on the audience, you have to find your audience. Yeah. But any audience, like, you can make, like, I could tell the same joke to any type of audience, and it can still be funny, no matter, you know, what it is. Right. And so, the more I started talking about myself, you know, that's when I realized, oh, like, okay, they think this is funny, like, you know, because I think about it in my head, and I'm just like, maybe they won't like this, maybe they'll be like, too much, but it's that honesty that comes from being a comic. And it's like, I'm like, hey, this is who I am, you know. Right, it's funny as hell, you know. And so I just kind of rolled with that. Just keep going with that.
Nice. Do you find it easier to perform in a clean show versus a dirty show? Like, what's easier for you to do? Or are you? I'm sure at this point you're capable of doing either, really. But like, which do you find a little bit easier, or possibly even more fun to do?
I like doing their show, but clean shows can be fun and stuff, because basically you could just do a clean show with the same jokes. You just take out the curse words.
Sure. Right.
You know, if you could work it in that. But clean shows are a lot more fun because, like, sometimes I test it, like, to see how far they will go. Like, I'll say a clean joke, but it's like has a dirty intent to it, and to see how, like, oh, okay, you guys are not so clean, you know, because you know everyone has that little, you know, and then sometimes you slip up, like, but it's just like, you know, we're human. So,
right.
So yeah, but clean shows are a lot more fun. Yeah.
I like the idea of that. There's a show that I really liked watching that was on HBO called Crashing, and it was like a Pete Holmes thing. And I remember they had to do a show, I believe it was in like a sanctuary of a church somewhere, and he just like, basically, sort of how you describe it, he basically just drew from his church upbringing and just started telling jokes and like getting like a little bit more aggressive as the show went on or whatever. And you see these people who maybe, you know, on a biased take, you'd be like, oh, they don't want to laugh at something, you know, they're like a uppity person that doesn't want to laugh at, you know, like slightly pushing the edge joke, you know. And you can kind of, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about comedy and performing, is you can pull those things out of people. Do you find like that ability to sort of pull that reaction, or like get people to show their true sides through laughter? Maybe,
it's a good thing, because sometimes, what show was I at? I was doing a show in Muskegon. It was on a boat, and
nice.
It was these two old ladies, just sitting right in the front row, and I'm like, everyone's laughing, but these bitches are not. They're not having it. So I'm just like, okay. So I go into my when I talk about my grandma being older, because they were older women, I started talking about older women and stuff like that, and I can't remember which joke, but it was one joke that got them, and I caught it. I was like, hell yeah, finally got you. Like, it felt good, because like there was no way you're gonna sit here through my entire set all frowned up and stuff. So when you can see that, because there's some people that come to the shows and they're just like, and it's like, why are you here? You know,
right.
But when you get them, it's like, okay, see, you are a good person. So
nice. Yeah. Do you have that? Another thing, I feel like I'm not trying to just quote different people from comedy podcasts that I've heard and then steal their questions to ask you. I have other questions besides things I've heard on comedy podcasts, I swear. But do you think that you see those people a little more easily than the rest of the crowd that might be laughing? You're able to sort of pick out that
kind of stand
those
out
one
more.
or two people that aren't laughing.
Yeah, because they tend to stand out. Because usually they sit in the front row for some reason. Like, like I was doing a show at Billy's Lounge, and there was a guy. He had his arms folded. I was like, unfold your fucking arms when I'm on stage. Like, you know, who do you think you are? Yeah. And he unfolded his arms. It's like they tend to stick out sometimes. You know, some people like tend to ignore them, but I mess with them because it's like you're at a comedy show. You're going to laugh. You're here to laugh. So damn it, laugh. I'm going to keep messing with you laugh. You know. So when they do, it's good. And then usually after the show, they come up to me. It's like, hey, I really needed that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like my most favorite one was I was performing at Mulligan's and there was a guy in there, like thug guy, like teardrop tattoos, and like just a. Like, you wouldn't approach this guy on the street. So he's back there. And so I do a joke. I was like, oh, what's up, man? I was like, I like that gold chain. Did you steal it? It's like, man, you just got out of prison and stuff like that. So everyone's laughing and stuff like that. And I can't really see because it's kind of dark. So I'm not sure if he's laughing or something. And so I'm outside, you know, hanging with other comics. And he comes up to me. He's like, hey, let me talk to you for a minute. I'm like, oh, shit, this guy's about to kill me. So he was like, hey, when you were upstage, he was like, you know, you touched a spot in me, like right in here, you know. He's like, made me a little happy. It was good feeling to laugh. So he was like, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate that. And I was like, oh, okay, thugs, you know, about to cry and stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, he went and robbed 2 gas stations in my honor. So
have you ever found a time where you've done that, like pointed out someone in the crowd and kind of like tried to play with them a little bit and they didn't like it at all and they maybe approached you in the moment or after the show and said that wasn't nice or they didn't appreciate it or anything like that?
I never had that.
No?
Because, I never had that. Because usually most of the time when people, I'm like, all right, I know when to lay off with somebody. But sometimes, like, when you can get them and stuff like that, you know. But like, I think I'm aware of, like, when people are like, hey, I don't want to be messed with. Some people don't want to be messed with, and I still mess with them, but they still, like, you know, after a show, they're like, hey, you're good job. And then usually when I'm off stage, if I mess with somebody in the crowd, I go up to them like, hey, thank you for being a good sport and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you never know how people are in that moment, you know. Like, they could be laughing, and after the show, you know, like,
yeah. Sure. I mean, in your defense, you know, you think that they came here to laugh. Yeah. You know, like, what do you expect when you go to a comedy show? Yeah. Like, either, you know, you're going to get picked on or someone else is going to get picked on. It's part of the gig.
It's a show, yeah. So, yeah.
Now, let's talk about the crowd a little bit when you're performing. Do you have, like, what sense of control amongst the room are you trying to strive for when you're performing? Because you want the room to be loose, but I also imagine you want the attention of the room too. Is there, like, do you ever find, maybe initially when you started, was there a struggle to sort of gain control over the room?
Oh yeah. When I first started, you know, like, especially during open mics, there are like bars, and you know, when they're there, there's sports songs, so they're not paying attention. So when you first start off, you're like, man, fuck you guys and stuff like. I'm cussing a lot. Does that bother you guys?
No,
okay.
Nope, you're not totally cussing enough.
Oh, okay. So yeah, when you know you first start, man, fuck y'all and stuff like that. You get in that, but then it's just like you have to realize the more you do it and the better you become, you can, like, you know, feed off the crowd. And now it shocks me because when I get on stage, like, the crowd will be rowdy for like the first 2-3 comics or whatever, but like when I'm on there, it's like dead silence, all eyes on me, and this is like, holy shit, like, like, oh, these fuckers want to laugh, like, you know. So it's a good feeling, and you know, like, I like it. Like, I want all the attention. Like, you know, you came to see me, damn it, I'm going to give you a show. So pay attention.
Right on.
And if there's some people who are talking, you know, you call them out and stuff like that. Or, like, one time a girl's cell phone went off. After I said, like, hey, you know, after the host said, silence your cell phones. So I go on stage and her phone's ringing. And I was like, go ahead, check your phones. Probably your kids calling.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question is, how do you handle, like, a heckler? Like, where do you, I mean, I know that's a pretty basic comedy question probably, but, like, where, like, when someone does say something to you, like, like maybe you tell a joke and you get like a ooh, like somebody that's a little like sensitive, or maybe they say something to you, they yell, they've been drinking or something, and they yell.
Oh yeah.
What do you try to do to sort of de-escalate the situation? Or even if it needs to be de-escalated, I guess.
I was like, it depends. But sometimes I fuck with them. Like, if you come into my show and you, like, now it's all about you. It's you and me now, motherfucker. Like, you interrupted me. It's you and me now, motherfucker. Like, there's one guy, he came in, he's in the front row. And he would not stop talking. And I was like, okay, do I have to, like, I started just fucking with him. Like, okay, do I have to, like, put this pussy on your face to get you to shut up? Like, I'm just fucking with him. And just saying shit, just getting him. And he's coming back and he's talking and stuff like that. So those be, like, the best interactions I have. Like, those be, like, the best shows. Like, I headlined for the first time at Ambrosia, like a few weeks ago. And this drunk lady comes in, like, I'm already on stage, like, 15 minutes in. And so it's like 20 minutes left of the show, 25. And she comes in, she's drunk as shit. Like, hey, I was on the mountain with Jesus. I was like, what? And she's just talking crazy. And so I'm just fucking with her. And it was like the best time. Like, I was so mad I didn't record that set. 'Cause that was like the best. So sometimes, a lot of comics don't like it. And they're like, shut the fuck up and stuff like that. But I'm just like, well, they paid to be here. If they want to, I'm going to give them a show.
Right.
So, but if it becomes too much, I'm like, hey, shut the fuck up. All right, But most of the time, I just fuck with them.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, because I get curious. I forget who I was seeing, but I remember, I did see Todd Barry. He did like a crowd work tour. And he came through Grand Rapids. He did the pyramid scheme.
Oh, nice.
And he basically just, spent 5 minutes with everybody in the crowd, just like picking apart what they were wearing or asked them a question or two about their job or something. And he kind of that was basically his whole structure for the show. He didn't have any planned material. It was just like a crowd work thing. Do you ever have like this idea that you're going to go in with material and then you see the crowd and you just are kind of like, oh no, all my material's out the window at this crowd. I'm just going to spend the, however long my set is just looking around the crowd and trying to crowd work. Is that ever something that you try to do?
Yeah. So like if it's a place that I've never performed before, like a different city and I've never performed before, I'm going to start off with like my jokes that I know are funny and get them. And then so as, they're laughing, then I start seeing the crowd. And then that's when I will start doing the crowd work and stuff like that. Sometimes, crowd work can happen off bat. Like, I see a guy with, like, a funny shirt. I'm like, why would you wear that? Or stuff like that, Just mess with that and then feed off that and stuff like that. So, usually when I'm doing, like, a new city or something, I come in, I plan to start off with stuff that I know is funny just to get them hooked and then feed into that crowd work.
Right on. When you're performing in new cities, I mean, what are the shows like? Is it... you get local comedians and then you're sort of a headline, or are you like trying to feature on things, or are you, when you're performing in other cities, like what are the shows like?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like an opener, give me like 10, 15 minutes open. And then sometimes I'm a feature. So you get like 15, 20 minutes as a feature, whatever. So yeah, I like to like start off with, but if it's like if it's a small crowd, out of town, then I'm just going straight for crowd work because it's intimate and I just want to, engage in that. Yeah. I may do like one joke to like start them off with, like, hey, ha, ha, ha. But then it's like, well, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing, So.
What's the most important thing for like a feature? Like someone who may be looking to get to that point in their comedy career where they're like featuring for a touring act or like somebody coming through town. Like what do you think the most important like functions for a feature comedian are?
Most funny thing is to like be funny and have at least 25 minutes. I say to be a feature at least 25 minutes because headliner is just like 30 to 45. So if you can tie that in, you see you're almost close to headlining. But main things for me is to be funny, be able to hold a crowd for 15, because it's not, and that time goes by fast when you're on stage, but it's not easy. It's hard to sit there and try to keep people laughing, especially when they didn't come to see you, and then that's also as a feature, you don't want to be like, well, I hate to say this, but sometimes like the headliner, they're kind of dicks or whatever, and so they are. Some headliners are like really dicks, and they don't like if you're too funny or just don't step on the headliner. But for me, like I heard that rule, like don't be funnier than the headliner. I heard that before, but I was like, fuck that, I'm funny. They're not here to see me. They're here to see
kind of silly.
Them,
honestly, like it's not your fault that you're better than them.
Yeah,
you're just there to do your act, and your act is your act.
Yeah, and some people get like some headliners don't want features like that because that feature is stronger than them or something like that. Or they'll steal the whole crowd and then the headliner come up and they're like, we paid to see them. I'd rather pay to see her, Which I've had happen for, but it is what it is. Shit, you still got paid more money than me, so what do you care?
Right.
That's interesting. It makes me think of a time band that I was in way back when, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago maybe. We performed at the Pyramid Scheme. We opened for like a touring package that came through. And the band that played right after us, when we were taking our gear off stage and they were loading on, they said something like along the lines of like, "Oh, for a local, you guys were pretty good."
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, I mean, thank you for that. And then like now that I think about it later on, or like as I started to sort of think about it, I'm like, it's a little bit of like a low blow to one, like the local community where like we play with some bands that I think are better than us, and then like I'll take the compliment because I'm sure they see some garbage bands come through on tour, but it just like after I thought about it, it hit me the wrong way, I guess, because I'm thinking like, oh man, maybe we're better than this band, or maybe that's okay. Like maybe if we are, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It kind of just maybe puts it in perspective for those road bands that might start to think like, oh, we're on the road doing this, we must be better than everybody. We come to this local town, we're going to be better than whoever performs before us. But like how you're saying, I would think if you were funnier than the headline comedian, that's kind of on the headline, like be funnier.
They're here to see you, know, so
I've heard the same thing back when I played too, and I didn't even think about it that way. I was just like, oh yeah, the bigger bands like us, cool. You know, it's like, that's awesome. That's a great feeling, and then you're now I'm just like,
bitch.
Wow, like it's like, now I'm thinking about it.
So I guess for you, if you do a headline show, are you kind of on the flip side of that, where you have a feature, say one night you have a feature that comes on and they just blow the crowd away? What's going through your head when you're about to perform? Like,
I'm feeding off that energy because in my mind, iron sharpens iron. Like that's why like when I put together shows, like how I do the lineup, I'll like it depends on who the lineup is, because some people like when you do a show, some people like to put like their stronger people out first to get the crowd riled up, but I feel like when you do that, you have to have a strong lineup. So sometimes I have strong people, and then I have people who are just, I put them on the show because they annoyed the hell out of me. And they're good people, not really the funny, but they're good people. So I was like, all right, I'll give you opportunity. So I work around that because I know, like, if I'm hosting, I know like these people are not, gonna, like, they may hit them once, but I'm the host, so I have to bring back the crowd and then just go back and fill in where that is. But iron sharpens iron, in my opinion. So if I got somebody that's killing it, I'm like, oh shit, you done warmed them up for me. Now I'm about to go. That gets my adrenaline going. Like, oh shit, like, oh, now I gotta like, it's like, oh shit, now I gotta step up the bar. Like, damn, this motherfucker just went and killed it before me and stuff like that. So it's a good feeling. I like it.
Do you still experience like, I mean, you said about 3 years you've been doing this?
Yeah, almost 3 years, yeah.
Do you experience, like, okay, walk me through the difference between a show that just 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 is an incredible show, you got the crowd laughing, you feel good, your jokes hit in all the right ways that they're supposed to, versus, like, what to you, because I think there's a wide spectrum, I guess, depending on the comedian, I would assume, what you think is a bomb. And do you feel it when it's happening on stage?
Yeah, I do. Like, because even after the show, people will be like, you did amazing, you did good. But to myself, I'm like, nah.
Right.
Like, you're just saying that. Like, I know they're genuine because they're like, yeah, we see you all the time, you did good. But to myself, I'm like, I'm my hardest critic. So, like, even people are like, oh, you were fucking hilarious. I'm just like, even at the Dirty Show, I don't feel like I did, that good. But I still have people coming up to me like, hey, you were fucking amazing and stuff like that. Because I had performed a show earlier. And so it was getting late. And so I'm just like, all right, let's get these jokes out. But everyone was like, oh, you were good. But, it's just a mindset thing for myself,
Yeah.
But when I have those shows where it's like, oh, yeah, I know. You were funny. I'm like, hell yeah, I was. Like,
Nice. Do you think, what do you think of the idea, and this is going to be another, I heard this on a comedy podcast one, I just to preface it like that. Do you think there's a certain truth to, a comedian being, maybe a modern-day philosopher, in a sense, where you're sharing the world through, your point of view and your experience in your life and how you see the world around you, in a sense where, kind of, you're telling a story about how to live your life, and then people are drawing from that into their own experiences and sort of relating to you in that? Do you think that being a comedian, sharing your stories, I'm trying to teeter around this so I can ask it in the right way that doesn't make me sound like a dick, but what I'm saying is, where do you find what you're saying is important enough to be said, on stage? To give you an example, when we put out this podcast, every once in a while I'm like, who the fuck is even going to listen to this? Why do I think that what we're saying is so important that I need to share this with the world, Where do you think there's, a line in comedy where people, figure out that they want to share their stories and their life, and where does it seem like it's important enough to be shared? Or does that even really matter to you at all? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I get what you're saying. It all goes back to, knowing your crowd. Because there are some comics who talk about current events and and they stick on that, or they're like, oh, let's go Brandon. They do all that, stuff like that. And you just got to know your crowd, because some people are just like, we don't want to hear about that. We watched it on the fucking news. We don't want to hear you joke about it unless you're freaking hilarious, But other than that, they're like, we don't want to hear about that and stuff like that. But for me, it's it's always my truth. What I experience as a black, bisexual, female comic, is what my experience. And I feel like it's important to suffer from mental illness. I make some jokes about, I got a suicide joke, and it's fucking hilarious. I don't say it all the time because, again, going back to your crowd, and some people in the crowd are like, ugh, too much. But, when you have that crowd and those people, they're like, okay, yeah. And it will give you a sense to, I feel like sharing my story, my truth, who I am as a person, it can inspire somebody else in the audience to, you never know when somebody may be going through, and they can really oh yeah, I can relate to that. Versus as, where people are just sitting there talking about, oh yeah, this pandemic, huh? It's yeah, dude, we lived it. We've been 2-3 years. Yeah, people die. Ooh, funny. But so, it goes back to knowing your audience and how you can deliver it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. Yeah, because I think, for me, even if I have these small insecurities or whatever, where I'm like, oh, who even cares? Why do I think what I have to say, or this is so important? But ultimately, it's we enjoy doing this. We get something out of it, and if it helps somebody, I mean, even better. You know. But I just get curious as far as comedians go, because it's a very vulnerable thing to be doing at the same time. I mean, you're sharing your story and being very vulnerable with total strangers. And like you said, it could inspire somebody to share their story too.
And it gives people a good laugh. If you could laugh at yourself, that's what I tell people. If you could laugh at yourself, that's your thing. People just... because people are going to make fun of you anyway. So why not make fun of yourself and make it funny,
Yeah.
Right.
And come off hey, this is who I am. So, when I do an all-white crowd, I always start off calm down, everybody. I'm not Missy Elliott, So, get them comfortable and stuff like that.
Kind of form it your own way, so then you can kind of control it a little bit.
Now, that's something I'd like to kind of move into as well, because there's an uncomfortability, I think, as an audience sometimes with stand-up comedy, especially in a climate of, how we experience today, where
cancel culture,
people kind of walk on eggshells when they're talking about something. Do you, if you get the sense, you go out, you tell a joke, say you say this suicide joke, and it's the one you open with or something, and the crowd is just like uncomfortable with that. How do you wiggle your way out of that uncomfortability, or try to like pull that laughter in?
Usually I'll be like, okay, well, suicide's off the jump, and then just move on. For like, you try to say something like, oh, okay, damn, y'all ain't fucking with suicide. Okay, I'll go call my therapist or something. Like, you make it come back, but you have to be quick. Like, I did a joke in front of like older people, like older black people, and they think they're so perfect. So I did a joke. I was like, yeah, I swallow. And they're just like, oh. And I'm just like, okay. Y'all know y'all used to swallow back in your day. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't sit up here and act like, don't even play. Don't act like you ain't been, back in 68 in the back of your Cutlass Supreme, like, doing that stuff. So, yeah, you got to just, like, recover, like, because you're going to have those moments. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you, like when you write jokes, or when you're putting like your where the punchline, setup, punch, whatever together, do you think about that? Do you change the way you might phrase something, or like does that even matter to you? Like where do you find that you might censor yourself in a sense? Like do you police what you say, or do you censor what you say intentionally, or do you just kind of just not even really care?
Only if it's a clean show.
Sure.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't care. Like, right. This is how to. Sometimes I might like do it to where they may understand it. Mm-hmm. Like, because if I said like a younger crowd, like a more hip crowd, like, versus like an older crowd, like, oh, what are you talking about? So like I may like reword it in a sense like that, so they'll understand it. But most of the time, it's this is what it is, and I'm going for it.
Right.
So
yeah, because there's something about living in that uncomfortability and like figuring it out and just like navigating that I can imagine is just exciting. Like if you like, it goes back to like getting that laugh out of that person that wouldn't laugh. Like maybe making like a PC-esque person laugh about something that they wouldn't have laughed about.
Yeah.
Do you think like I hate saying PC, because it's like I'm saying PC like it's a bad thing,
right,
to be like aware of people's feelings, right, and aware of what you're saying. But do you think this, like how some comics might say like everybody's too sensitive now?
Right.
Do you think that there's truth to that, or do you think it's people are too lazy to figure out how to be funny to a new style of audience?
It could be both, but to me, I just feel like, okay, some people may not agree with this, but like in a way I can understand how people say it's too sensitive, because it's like everyone gets talked about. Like, that's just life. So as a comedian, why can't I not talk about it? Like, if I can sit up and talk about myself being a black, bisexual, mental ill woman, other people are going to do it. So why can't I talk about, and then it comes a line where it is like, you have to be respectful. Because there was a comic, I got in a big altercation, because he was like, it was a guy who had, a deformity, like scoliosis or whatever. And this guy was just like shitting on him, like, no neck, you can't wear turtlenecks. And it's just like, it's not funny. Like, if it hadn't been funny, it'd be like, okay, now it's like, you're mad at this guy because he said something to you, and you're just trying to hurt him because he embarrassed you. So like that little male ego thing. So people are too sensitive, but you have to know like when you cross the line and stuff like that, and it goes back to knowing your audience, because I can go to a room and do a joke and I can drop the R word and they'll fucking love it. But I know I couldn't go do this at this crowd, whether I think they're too sensitive or not. I know that, hey, it offends them. And they didn't pay to come and get offended. They paid to laugh.
Right.
So you just have to know your boundaries and know your limits.
Yeah.
So.
Right. I think that it all kind of comes down on how you're kind of saying it too. Like, I think you can mostly tell if someone's trying to say things to hurt them and be mean, or saying it in a way to be funny and get a laugh out of it and kind of joke about it.
Yeah. That's how you deliver it.
Yeah. What are some of the comedians around town that you are like a fan of, or that you like? I guess what I'm asking, is like, could you talk about some of the comedians that you found, like, that you want to maybe promote, like, that you think people should check out locally?
Yeah, of course. My brother Devron Thomas, not my real, but we're close in the game and stuff like that. Devron Thomas, Hunter Miles, who also has his own podcast. Where's This Going Pod.
We've been trying to get him on here for a while.
He's a good guy, and he does his open mic in Holland and stuff like that.
Yep.
Don Clifford is a really good guy. He's young, pretty young guy. He won Grand Rapids Funniest Person 2018, I believe.
Nice.
So yeah, he's really funny. It's like all the comedians. I'm fans of everyone. Like I just go to all the shows and it's like, I'm fans. So just check out all the comedians in the local scene. So
that's good to hear that you also like support like the scene that you're in, because like where our background from music, you hear about bands that they just go to their own shows. They don't participate in other shows outside of their own. And then they talk about, the scene's dead, and the scene's bad, people don't show up or whatever. It's like, dude, you don't even go to shows other than the ones you play at. Yeah. So that's really good to hear, it's just...
We got some drama like that in the community, like, some people, like, I guess somebody got called out on it, and it was like, well, what does it matter if I was like, you can't complain about people not supporting you if you're not supporting other people.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's stuff like, it's no big deal to me. I enjoy going out and seeing people and just being amongst the community and stuff like that. It's cool. Like, sometimes I don't want to perform all the time. Like, they'll ask me, I'm like, nah, I'm just here to chill, check out the show. Just chill and support, show your face. And that's how you get put on other shows and you network. And people be like, oh, I hope you were going up and stuff. I was like, well, come check me out this time. So then you have that person come see you at a different show. So
Right. Like it's like we're better together than we are working against each other.
Yeah, just like there's enough for all of us. We all can be successful. You don't need to be weird.
Have you ever had a time where you like showed up at a show and you weren't planning on performing, and then they ended up having you perform in some way at all? Is that something
that's
that
mostly all the time.
Yeah.
Like this mostly all the time. Like especially like the open mics when they're like, hey look, like sometimes they're like, hey look, I got a shitty lineup. Can I throw you in here? Or if like there's people, if the crowd is just not messing with the show, they be like, hey, can you go on here and just like get them like do like 3-5 minutes and stuff. And sometimes I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do it or whatever. Sometimes I'm just like, nah, I'm just not in the mood. But yeah, it does. Every time. You want time? Like, no, I'm just here to watch the show.
That's great.
What have you noticed about, since you became a comedian, you first kind of started doing some open mics and things like that to where you are now within the scene? Like, has it grown? I mean, what are the differences in venue? Like, what do you notice about the differences, maybe the attitude amongst comedians around the scene over the course of the time, even with like this COVID pandemic kind of in the middle of it?
The scene has grown tremendously, and there are like a lot of spots now. Like I think there's a lot of like a mic every night in Michigan, the Grand Rapids, or if you could drive like 30, most you have to drive like 30 minutes if you want like a good. Then you could start hitting up Detroit and stuff like that. But for mainly Grand Rapids, it's like a mic every night. And then we have the pro shows and stuff like that with the big headliners. Like, they had just had Josh Wolf. I just performed with Josh Wolf this weekend. That was pretty cool. So,
hell yeah.
So that has grown a lot. And, it's, more opportunities have been created. So that's a good thing. And people's attitude, like, during the pandemic, we lost, like, a lot of comics. Like, when I started, it was, like, a lot of comics. And then when, like, everything started opening back up, it's like you didn't hear from these people no more. They didn't do comedy no more. I'm like, God, did they die? Like, did COVID get them? Like, But a lot of people, they just stopped doing comedy. They just like, I'm raising family. They're having babies and just doing other venues. And it's like, it kind of sucks to see, but you understand. But a lot of people, some people get arrogant and stuff like that. Like, they think they're better than people. You just can't be that way.
Right. Do you find? I mean, I guess I don't want to make it stay too on that or make it like. I tend to not want to dive into the negative while at the same time also wanting to dive into like, the negative. Do you think like those people that do kind of get maybe like move a little bit faster than what their comedy like speaks for? Do you think those people kind of figure it out along the way, or they're maybe humbled and brought back down to reality in some ways? Or do you think they just kind of...
Like, some people, they ride that... So, like, for me, I'm always the type of person... Like, I just believe, like, you just must be humble. Like, because... like I moved up pretty fast than a lot of people that's been doing it for like 5, 6, 7 years. And you have to be, but I'm funny, I'm good. But there's like some people who are like not that good, and you know that they got there because of their friends or whatever. And so some of them, they get real big headed and stuff like that. They think but they quickly get humbled because they'll do a show and just eat shit, you know. Right. And it's just like, see, you're not as good as you thought you are, and like you're good, but it's just like your attitude. Like, you could be a funny person, but if you're like, you could be funny as hell, like the funniest person in Michigan, but if you are a difficult person to work with, you will not get booked. Right. So yeah, a lot of people, they get big headed, but then they get humbled, and it's just like, ha ha. And I love to see it. Like, you know, I know it's bad to say, but it's just like when someone's like an asshole and like they're mean to people. Put in their place. Yes, and they like bomb hard, and I'm just like, yes, yes, I love it. Like, bitch, I was here to witness this.
Hell yeah,
that's great.
No, I do love that. Yeah, because there's, as much as people don't really want to admit it, there is like a certain excitement out of seeing somebody kind of get put in their place a little bit, because it puts it in perspective for you, and maybe also like I would imagine maybe somebody who already is humble might see that and say, oh, I'm on the right path. You know. Tell me a little bit, like when you work with a headliner, like a pro that comes through town or something, what level of soaking up information from them are you versus giving them their space and understanding, like they're here to perform but also need their time? Like, because I imagine some, it's like, oh, you opened, you featured, let's all go hang out and talk comedy and hang. Like, where do you find that balance of kind of like being there and not there at the same time?
Like, it depends on who the headliner is. If it's somebody like I'm like a fan of, I'm like, holy shit, I'm nervous. But like, well, I did like I did a show with Bill Bellamy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bill Bellamy, comic Bill Bellamy. He came to Park Theater, and so I did a guest spot. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of his. Like, I've loved him since I was a kid. Like, you know, one of my favorites. And it's like, he's like, you guys ever been to Park Theater in Holland?
Yeah.
Okay, so like they have like the upper section and stuff like that. So that's usually where like the people hang out, whatever.
Yeah.
And so everyone left, and it's just, I'm here and he's there. And I was like, oh shit. Like, dude, but he's just on his phone, not paying me no mind. I'm just like, do I just ask him some questions or do I? So I'm just like, nah, just like, he has another show he's about to do. Just let him do his thing. Don't be a groupie, you know. You could talk to him after the show like that. So, like, I get, you know, I do that, you know, so I like give them their space. But like with Josh Wolf, I was hosting, so I'm just like, I have to like get this information from you. I'm not trying to be like a groupie. I just want to know, like, hey, what do you want me to say? Will you come out? How much time do you want me to do? Like, because essentially it's their show, and I don't want to step on nobody's toes or like, you know, I just want to say, how do you want your show? Because I'm gonna do my thing and bring you out and get the fuck on out the way. You know, so yeah, you know, I just approach it with ease. If they're like very welcoming and stuff like that, it's like, hey, all right, here I am. Hey, how you doing? And my favorite one, it was Jeff Dye, because he was he was really cool. He came and he did Park Theater, I believe, that night, and then he came to Paris. And so I go up on Paris, and this fucking asshole. So he goes up like closer to the end, and I think he was like the last person. And he goes up and he goes, "Oh, it's crazy. I come to an open mic, and the funniest person in the room is a fat black lesbian." And so I'm coming out the bathroom, and I hear it. I'm like, "Is he talking about me?" Like, thank you. So it was afterwards. He came and hugged me, and he whispered in my ear. He gave me like some really positive things to say. He was like, "No, you are incredible." And so it's always a good feeling and stuff like that. So I watch them. Like, some people, when I watch shows, they're like, "Why aren't you laughing?" Because I'm like, I'm studying this person. Like, I'm trying to see how, you know, what do they do? It's different. Like, how do they, you know? Because was Josh Wolf? He popped the edible right on stage.
Nice. Right on. So, yeah. Was there, just out of curiosity, what was that like? I mean, he's the one that took the edible, so I don't know how you would know what that was like for him. But like, was it obvious in like from a crowd perspective, where you're like watching the show, because you know what it's like to be on stage? So do you see the difference between maybe when it kicked in, where you're like, oh okay, yeah, he might be feeling it? He's like in a rhythm that's different or out of a rhythm.
Yeah, cause like he was like, oh, everybody, I'm about to take this. It's like 100 milligram, like a little pill, and he just. I'm like, oh shit, because he did like an hour and a half that night. I was like,
shit.
Yeah, it was almost midnight before like we were leaving. Like it was close to midnight. He almost ended. But yeah, you could definitely see because usually they're like you could tell when like for me at least I can tell when people are like drunk or like they're under the influence because if it's somebody's funny. It's like, oh, they're on the roll. It's like, this motherfucker is drunk. He's just talking gibberish and just doing whatever. But sometimes it slows people down. They're like, yeah, I'm high. It's like they're relaxed. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're losing your momentum. So, for him, you could definitely tell when it kicked in because he was just like, most of his time was taken up by 2 stories he told. All he told was like 2 stories.
Oh, interesting.
And he didn't even do none of the material that he had been doing from the other shows. And so he was just telling a story. They were fucking hilarious stories. And he's like acting them out. And like me, I'm here picturing like the story he's telling. I'm like, this is some funny shit. Like, so yeah, you can tell. Like for me at least, you can tell. So.
Do you like? I guess what do you prefer in a style of comedy? Because something I've noticed, and this I'm sure has been done long before, the last 5 years or so, but I'm kind of starting to see comedians put out their specials, and they have. Some people have hour 15 where they tell maybe 5 stories like over the course of it with different branch off to things. But then some I've seen they do, they'll put out this hour and a half special that's the whole story, just one story the whole way through. Do you which one of those styles do you think do you like more? And do you see why that tends to be somewhat of a trend now?
Yeah, for me, if you could take one story and like make it fucking hilarious, then okay, yeah, I'm done. But just like stretch it out over like, and I'm trying to think if anyone has done that, like stretched out like a whole story in the course of I'm pretty sure they have. I just can't think off the top of my head. But like, if they're like killing it and making it funny and like having those punchlines in between, like basically that's what Josh Wolf was doing. Like his first story had to be about 30 minutes long.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was long because like he kept getting sidetracked as well. But and he kept like throwing in little bits and pieces. But like in that 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure like that whole story took place in less than 15. And so to be able to stretch out because he set up the story. So you have to set up the story. Yep. Give a backstory and then set up the character, set up what's going on, set up what happened, and then you could like make up some shit in between. So if you could like follow the story to keep people engaged and stuff like that, it could be really good. I tend to enjoy that because it's like you got me hooked. Like I'm like, what happened next? Like I remember I think it was Hunter. He was doing a story about how and I don't want to put his business out there, but shit, he said it. It was I can't remember, but it was something about him and a buddy. He took his buddy's car while he was on Xanax, and he was just doing like a lot of traveling and stuff like that. And he's telling a story, and I'm like engaged in the story. But as he's telling the story, I'm thinking to myself like, did this motherfucker run out of gas or something? And like I'm thinking of the stuff. And then he finally mentions like, hey, my mom gave me money to fill up my gas card. And I'm like, okay, all right, now you got to it. So if you can do it and make it funny, yeah, I like that. It can play well because people can like, because I visualize when I see stories. And that's what a lot of people do, paint that picture and stuff like that. So yeah, it could go really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one skit that Josh Wolf did about the bachelor party. Have you seen that one? No. Oh man, that one's great. I'll have to show it to you after this, but it's great.
Please do.
I think that's the first time I ever seen him, and I'm just so focused in. And he's just like, I like weird shit. I'm about the weird shit. And it was just like, all right, you got me hooked now. I'm watching this.
That's how he was. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm listening now. Yeah. Like, he was like, okay. Because he's saying stuff. He's like, he bought it was a tall Puerto Rican woman, like a hooker. And he was like, what's the first thing I checked? And everyone's quiet. And I'm like, you checked the throat. Like, to make sure it's not a man. He's like, yep. So, yeah, it's good. I like storytelling. If you're good at it.
Yeah, right. Now, I think, Trev actually brought this up on the last podcast that we did. We did one with him last week, but I also saw on the internet that you had filmed a special recently out at the Park Theater.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what went into putting that together, and then tell me about like how the show went and what that was like to be filming and kind of have like a night that was like, you might have played a show or had a headline somewhere, but this is an important show that's all about you. Tell me what kind of was going through your mind that night.
All right, buckle up, boys. So, so it started off with, so I've been doing comedy and stuff like that. And it started off with, are you guys familiar with Don Veltman and Full House Comedy?
More so Full House.
Well, okay, Don Veltman is the guy behind Full House Comedy. And, so he, saw me at a couple shows that I did for him. I think the first one was Bill Bellamy, and then I featured for Jonathan Martin. I did a little feature run with Jonathan Martin, and I just kept doing like guest spots. And so he was just like, "Oh my God, I love your comedy!" Like he's like, "You got that gift and stuff like that." Like he was really intrigued, and so he was like, "I'm going to start a management company." And so I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Just thinking people talking, whatever." Like Yeah. So I can't remember what show I did. I did a show, and then after I had did that show, that's when he had his right-hand man message me. It was like, "Hey, Don wants to sign you, be as your manager and stuff like that. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm interested. Let's meet up and stuff." And he had told me about the doing a special. He had mentioned it beforehand. I just didn't know when. So when I met with them, he was like, "Yeah, this is my game plan and stuff. This is what I want to do." And he was like, "Oh, by the way, you and Ricardo are filming your special April 28th. And I'm like, "Oh." So he just dropped it on me. Like, I had no in the planning, none like what dates would work for me. It was just like April 28th. And I was like, cool, because that's the day before my birthday. Hell yeah, awesome. So that's like back in February, I want to say. So I'm putting it out there. I'm, promoting it. Like, hey, tickets are only $5. So I'm promoting. I'm nervous. I'm getting excited. So as the days keep coming, I'm getting more nervous. So it was like that week of, it was so crazy. So first I had a cold. Like, I'm congested. My throat is hoarse. I can't talk. And I'm like, oh shit, I have this special in like 2 days. I need to get better. So my mom's like, drink a hot toddy. So I'm drinking hot tea with fucking whiskey, I'm taking Sudafed to try to clear my nostril. I'm taking steam baths. I'm trying everything. So the night before the special, I could not sleep. I was just tossing and turning. I'm so nervous. I could not sleep. I even went on Facebook. I was like, holy shit, I'm so nervous. And everyone was like, you're going to do good. So the day of the special, everyone's sending me all these messages like, good luck. I literally had to put my phone on do not disturb. And so just getting nervous, but I'm preparing. I'm getting nervous, but I'm preparing. And I'm just like, okay, I don't want to get too drunk and I don't want to get too high. So I want to find a medium. Yeah. So the day of the special, I'm there. I'm at Park Theater. I'm just looking around, and then the people start coming in, and it's just like, okay, all right, this is it. Like, this is about to happen. And so Ricardo goes first, and I'm like, okay, I got some time to relax, get my nerves together. So he gets done, he gets off stage, and it's like, oh shit. So the host goes up, and she introducing me, and it's like everyone's in an uproar, like everyone's standing on their feet, they're cheering me on and shit like that. And it's just like I'm trying to hold my tears back because I don't want them to see me crying on stage. So, but it was just an amazing feeling, like, and then just get on stage and to see all those people in there, because that's a pretty big place, and there was quite a few people in there. So just to see all those people, and just to see, like, there was one lady in the front row, she was like laughing so hard, she was holding her chest, and I'm like, are you okay? Please don't die on me. Like, so it was amazing. It was a good feeling. I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because sometimes it's still hard to believe, like, I actually did this, Right. So yeah, it's a very humbling experience.
When you're putting that together, what, like, well, first I guess a question should be, how long was the
we both did 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so when you're kind of putting it together, this is all stuff I'm sure you're comfortable with, have told plenty of times. Is there, like, how methodic are you to putting together your set list, and how much of it was just like right place, right time comedy that just happened to be filmed in that night too?
Yeah, because I do a lot of mostly crowd work. So I started off, I got the crowd going and stuff like that, and then my mom was in the crowd. She was being loud and stuff. So I'm just like shitting on my mom, like, Mom, shut the fuck up. Like, this is my time. You had your time. And there was this one couple in the front row, so I'm doing the crowd work with them, and they're like, yeah, we've been dating for like 3 years. I'm like, oh, okay, 3 years. Why aren't you married? And he goes, well, she has a husband. And I'm just like, oh, I'm thinking he's joking, but no, she has a husband. Come to find out, they're in a polyamorous relationship. So I was like, oh, okay. This is interesting. Like, you know, so now I'm just fucking with them. Like, you know, I'm asking her, like, whose dick bigger, your husband or his? Like, you know, I'm just really just going into there. So, like, that was one of those things where it's just like, you couldn't make that up. Like, you had to be there to, like, like, I was like, what the fuck? Like,
was there a part of you in that moment that's like, oh, thank you. This is amazing. I'm so glad that this
I actually grabbed the stool. I was like, hold on, I gotta sit down for this because this is crazy. Like, I'm like, you're so open about it. So I'm just like, okay, I wanna get into it. And there was another kid. He was a kid in there, him and his girlfriend. I was just ragging on him. He was like, oh, yeah, I work at this burger place and it's kind of racist. And I'm like, well, if the place is racist and you work there, does that make you a racist? He's like, well, white people don't know if they're racist. And I'm like, what? How do you... So I'm just fucking... He was a good kid. Like, he was awesome. Shout out... I forget his fucking name. But shout him out. Holland, Michigan. He works at a racist diner. But it was cool. It was just one of those things where it was like, you know, God, was this like you couldn't make this up. Like, if you watch it, when you watch it, because you fuckers gonna watch it, it's gonna be one of these, like, you feel like this had to be set up. And it's like, you know, no, you just get some crazy ones when you do crowd work.
Hell yeah. What's the goal with the special? Like, what would you like to, or what are your plans with it? If you can say, I don't know. So the thing is to shop it around to like some agencies, you know, see if we can, you know, get some bites off of that, whatever. And then just have like a big launching party for it. So we're like gonna do like clips and work them into a commercial, and then working on getting a website and getting some merch so that when we launch this thing, we're just going to launch everything. So it's going to be like, okay, well, if you like this is where you can find me at. This is where you can get the special at and watch it at and stuff like that. So just preparing for that. So what do you think the trend is going to be? I mean, it seems as though maybe like the Netflix special or even like a YouTube special has sort of been the trend in the last decade or so. And moving sort of away from like the HBO, Comedy Central, Showtime specials. What do you think? Do you see like the potential for specials and being released like into the world, since it's become just so saturated with
like
comedy?
From me or just in general?
Just in a general sense, or with you too. We can do both.
I mean, because I think that's like a big goal for a lot of comedians to have like. Some people say, like, Comedy Central. I'm like, fuck that. I want HBO, Netflix. I want it all. Like, I want whoever's throwing me money, I want it all. I think, specials are the go-to now because there's a lot of people releasing specials. So.
Do you worry, like when you put it out, like, you have to, it seems like you have to be real strategic within your marketing so it doesn't just get sort of pushed off with the rest of the specials. I mean, where do you think... Like, how do you think you'll stand out versus the other specials that are out there?
Just be unique. I know, like, if we try to do it, like, worldwide, you know, of course, no one's going to, like, know, who the fuck is she? You know? So,
sure.
Like, that's why the goal is to have an agent or whatever to push that out for you, to say, like, hey, we just signed her on. This is what we got for her and stuff like that. Other than that, I have my management team that's really going to just push it out for me and stuff like that. So, like, I've created, like, my own fan base. Like, I got my Facebook comedy page and stuff like that. So, you know, got a good following. So, you just put it out there, just, like, and that's what the commercials and stuff they're going to play in. Because they're going to, like, okay, get them amped up and stuff. Like, I have clips. I'm just not releasing the clips yet. Because it's like, fuck you should have been there. It's only $5. So,
nice.
So, yeah.
Well, I think we're going to get into a little bit of a lightning round, and I'll preface it by saying this can be as long as we want it to. They don't have to actually be. It's a nice segment, I guess, so to speak, but lightning rounds take about 20 minutes, usually a little bit longer than that sometimes because we get into stories and chat and whatnot. Can you give me a moment in your time in comedy that sort of sticks out as a, like, I want to do both a positive and maybe like a negative too, but it can't be not like a negative where like you went on stage and you broke your leg or something. But like where you just had this like just this moment on stage where maybe you like had something like you forgot a joke or you like kind of botched the punchline or something, and how you recovered from it? Something that sort of sticks out to you in that regard?
Yeah, I did. It was like my first, cause I used to perform at Ambrosia Theater a lot when I first started. And I was doing just clean shows, and he finally put me on. So Saturday night were like the dirty shows, and Sundays were the church clean shows. So he finally put me on a Saturday night show, and so I'm like, oh hell yeah, I get to do all this. And so I go up there and I do a joke, like I do a new joke, like that I never practiced at an open mic or anything. And it's like, no one laughed. They're just looking at me. And so I go, well, fuck that joke, you know? And so that's when they start laughing. And so I just move on from it. So it's like, you always got to have those recoveries. Sometimes, you know, I recall doing an open mic and I'm like, I'm giving y'all my good shit. No one's like laughing or anything. They're just like, they're just there. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So you get a little down. You're like, what's wrong with, you know, like, you know, weird audience and stuff like that. You know, we always blame it on the audience. Weird audience. But it was weird because people were coming like, oh, you were funny. And I was like, I couldn't tell you weren't laughing. So,
Right.
But yeah, you just, you know, you have your moments, but, you know, you just push on, keep going.
Yeah. How often do you think it's a good crowd versus a bad crowd versus a bad set?
It all depends on the comic. And sometimes it legit just be a freaking bad crowd. Like sometimes the crowd is just like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know,
like
okay.
where you're like, oh, I know I'm on. It's you guys.
Yeah, they're just like, because sometimes people are just like, when they're there to see like a specific person, like that's why I hate when people bring people. Like it's good to bring people to shows because like, okay, we get a room full of people, but they're there just to see that person. Yeah. So they're not going to like, sometimes you can win them over and sometimes they're just like, no, we're here to see John White or whatever. You know, we're not going to think about you and stuff like that. And then John White's not fucking funny. He just brought a bunch of people that support him, so they're going to laugh and stuff like that. But sometimes, like, yeah, it depends on the comic as well, because I did a show where every comic that went up before me, the crowd was just not engaging with them. And I'm nervous. I'm like, well, I don't want to go up, like, if they're acting like this. But then when I went up, you know, they was like, oh, okay, you did good, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it depends on the comic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell me, now let's do a positive story, something that sort of sticks out where you're like, oh, that, I can't believe I had that moment, or like a joke that maybe you had just thought of or written that you told the first time and it killed, you know, like something positive that sticks out to you.
Oh, yeah, I've had that moment when I tried a joke and it went well. And I was like, oh, thanks. That was my first time doing that. I was like, glad y'all like that. But the most best thing that happened to me was I was doing some crowd work and I was talking to this couple and, you know, I'm just digging into them and, you know, hey, how long you been together? And they were a young couple. They was like, we've been together for like 10 years. I was like, damn, did y'all start dating in kindergarten or something? Like, and so I was like, oh, you got any kids? And so the boyfriend, he goes, well, not yet. We have one on the way. And so I'm like, oh, you're pregnant. Congratulations. And so everyone in the room knew the couple, but they didn't know the couple was pregnant. And so they're just revealing this big pregnancy to a stranger at a show. And everyone's just like, wait, what? So I'm like, wow, this just went from a comedy show to a baby shower. Like, so that was good. It made me feel bad because it made me feel like they trusted me to share that information with me. Like, and they didn't even share it with the people they know. And so
right,
it was a good feeling. I like that.
Yeah, I could see that. That's awesome. Yeah. What's like the seediest place you've ever performed in? Because I know, like, from our perspective, we've played in some like shithole basements in bars and churches and houses and things like that, where one time a pipe had burst and we literally were playing in a circle around a pile of like brown shit water, you know, and it was just not ideal. I'll say that about it, really. Where do you, like, can you think of a time? We don't, I guess, maybe it's not a great idea to say the place that wasn't so good to perform at, but I guess if
I'll just say the city.
Yeah.
Well, I think once I say the city, you'll probably know the place, but like, I can't say, like, there have been some shows where I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, you know, like I gotta stop doing stuff for people. But those usually turn out to be the best shows.
Yeah.
So, but like, so I can't really say it's been a shitty place because like those usually turn to be the best show. But like the most uncomfortable place was in Conklin, Michigan, because that one was like predominantly white, and it's just like, I swear, like, I seen the Shining Twins as I was driving it, like, on the side of the road, like, go back. I'm like, oh, okay. But, you know, like, it was very uncomfortable. Like I said, I think I was like the only black person in that town. So I walk in, and they looking at me, and I'm just like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm like, what's going to happen? So, but I went up, and I had a good time. Like, that was the time, was that the show? Yeah, as I'm performing, a guy bought me a drink right in the middle of my set as I'm performing. And I was like, I'm fucking watching you so you don't poison it. So, but yeah, it was like, it was just more tea because it was like uncomfortable, you know. I felt uncomfortable, but it was a good place. And after I performed, I got the fuck out.
Right. That's interesting because I grew up in a town maybe 5 or 10 minutes or west of Conklin, so I'm kind of familiar with the area, I guess, and like just to hear that there was a comedy show out there, it just seems crazy to me. Like that's wild.
I think that was like the first and last one.
Well, and I guess in the reverse of that, where are places that you like to perform? I mean, what are some of the places that you just always want to go back to?
Actually, one of the nice places that I really enjoy performing is you guys know the Comedy Project on Leonard Street.
Oh yeah. Trevor, he takes some classes out there. I've seen him perform out that way.
Yeah, him and his laugh. Like, fucking loud every time. I was like, yep, thank you, Trevor. Like,
he really does. When I've been at things where he's also been at, and I didn't know that he was there, I identify the laugh, and I'm like, oh, Trev is somewhere in the building.
Like, oh my god.
Well, that actually makes me think. This is a little bit random, but so I've gone to a couple of comedy shows. I think I was at Todd Barry and also Hannibal Buress, where this particular person in the audience was there, and they have this really distinct laugh. You may have performed in front of them, but they laugh and they just scream out, but like 6 times that volume, and there hasn't been one show where that person wasn't also in the audience where the comedian didn't acknowledge that person's laugh. Especially the Todd Barry show, because he was doing the crowd work anyway. And so when he got to her, that was the only thing they talked about was the laugh and how many comedians she'd seen and like who'd laughed or whatever.
Yeah, it is a girl. She got like a Woody Woodpecker laugh. Like,
have you performed in front of somebody like that?
That and it was when I did who was the guy? Zoltan guy from Where's My Car? God, what is his fucking name?
Yeah.
God, I feel like an asshole because I performed with this guy and I don't know his name. Hank Williams. Hank, was it? No, is that it?
Hank Williams.
Is that his
I
name?
don't know if it's him.
I don't know. But the guy who played Zoltan and fucking Where's My Car. So
give it a Google.
So we're at a listening room in Grand Rapids. Oh, well, yeah. You guys been in the listening room before? Yeah, okay. So we're at a listening room and there's this lady, like her laugh is just fucking it's like out of this world. So I stopped. I'm like, who the fuck is laughing like that? Like, why would y'all bring her to a comedy show with that laugh? I'm like, are you in a relationship? She'd be like, no. I said, I see why. So I'm just like messing with her like the whole show. And she's still laughing. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But
it's afterward, Hale Sparks?
Hal Sparks. Okay, yes. I fucking call him Hank. Hope he doesn't listen to this. But I hope he does. But yeah, so it was that laugh. I was like, Jesus Christ. But after the show, I was like, yeah, your laugh is awesome. She was like, thank you so much. I don't care. And all that stuff. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Nice. So I usually ask this when we have people who are like musicians on, but I'm curious. I've never actually been able to ask a comedian on the show. So one of the fun ones we have is we give you the opportunity to put together your dream lineup, but you're the headline and you get to pick the venue that you're performing. And we usually do 3 openers, but they have to be like someone you've worked with in some form or capacity or whatever. So you might have just been on a show with them or open for them in some way. So if you could do that and put together your dream comedy bill with people that you've worked with, who would it be and where would it be?
Oh, okay. It has to be a place I performed at. Okay, so I would definitely do listening room because I really, really like that venue. It's nice, it's intimate, it's a nice stage. This is a good vibe. I really enjoyed that venue. So people I worked with. Okay, let's see. Definitely Bill Bellamy. He was one of my favorites. Who else was really good that I worked with? Josh Wolf, of course. Yeah, he did pretty well. And let's see, God, Eric Griffin. He was Eric Griffin. Yeah, so
nice.
from Workaholics. Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was a good one too. So.
I just saw him at what's the space right above Creston?
Yeah. Which show were you at? Cause were you at the first one?
It would have been. I want to say. Trav's going to listen and he's going to know exactly the show. I want to say it was the Saturday show, but it was the early one.
Okay.
The 7 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, because I performed like the very first night. I did a guest spot, but it was like the late show. So
Gotcha.
And it was like the first night that place that opened for the Eric Griffin and stuff like that. So.
Right on. Yeah, because I think Hunter was the host that night, and then I forget who the feature was. I'd seen him before, but I forget who was featuring for that night.
Oh, yeah, I forget who his feature was, too.
But when I saw him, he was walking off stage and kind of just like, high-fiving, talking to people. And I was wearing I had a beanie on that folded up. And he came by me and just looked right at me. And I don't know, something must have clicked with him. And he just took the front of my beanie and folded it over my eyes. And I was just like, I'm like looking around. And I just sort of played into it because I thought it was funny. I looked over at my girlfriend. I was like, he got me.
Yeah.
He just got me. But yeah, that stuck out to me. It was a hilarious moment. But yeah, that pretty much usually wraps up the lightning round. But I do have a question I've been waiting to ask you because I thought of it a little while ago and figured it'd probably be a better question to ask at the end. But what do you think comedy has helped you learn about yourself or helped you figure out about who you are?
Yeah, that's a good one. I usually tell people comedy legit saved my life because I was headed down the wrong path. I had a little case against me. I was going to court. I was facing jail time. I was just not in a good space. And so by being able to get on stage and just people listen, you're gonna listen to my problems, but laugh. Helps me, relax and stuff like that. And you learn a lot about yourself. You learn who you are as a person, and you find acceptance in yourself, because sometimes I had some identity issues, and it's just comedy, I'm on stage, they don't give a shit what I do behind the scenes. They just care if I can make them laugh. So, through that and counseling and a lot of stuff, it really helps a lot because I can recall a time where I was having some, so I suffer from bipolar disorder, and so I was having some issues with getting my psychiatrist put me on new medication. I was having some issues getting the medication and stuff like that. My insurance was just they kept saying I had another insurance. I'm like, I don't have no insurance. I pay you guys, give me my medicine. It was just crazy, and I'm off meds, so I'm just okay, if I don't have nothing, I'm going to Pine Rest. It was at that point, but I was still able to get on stage and still perform, knowing that. I'm under this, I'm not myself. And so to be able to do that and have people laughing, that was a very strong moment for me because it's despite whatever I'm going through, I can still push through and perform and have a good time and put smiles on people's faces. So
that's great.
Comedy is it's a good thing. That's why people do it for the money, and it's the money's good, you get paid, but you have to love it.
Oh yeah.
You have to do it just because there's sometimes you won't get paid. Driving 3 hours to a show not to get paid, you have to do that. Driving out of different cities, just for the exposure. So you just have to love it. So
yeah, and I think that does kind of show the big difference between someone who does stand up. Even if it is for a living, I mean, you'd still do it regardless of whether or not you got paid for it. It's just something you kind of have to do that's ingrained within you.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. Where can people hear your comedy, or when was the special coming out, or when do you think? At least.
I want to say, what is this, May, June? Maybe September, maybe sooner, but I would say shoot for September. Right now it's in the editing process. But I may do some clips every now. I may do a good clip, just a teaser, just to build it up. Oh, hey fuckers, you forgot I filmed a special. Here's a clip, just to get people excited about it and stuff like that. So yeah, if you just follow me on Instagram at that funny girl Bree, THAT FUNNYGIRBRI. Facebook, Brianna Blackburn, or comedian Funny Girl Bree. TikTok, comedian Brianna Blackburn. So yeah, just follow me. I post all my shows on my social medias and stuff like that.
Right on.
Website coming soon, merch coming soon. So yeah, it's
nice.
Yes.
If you send me the links to those, I'll throw them in the information for the episode. Yeah. Do you have any? This is probably going to come out 2 or 3 weeks from now. You got any shows that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, so June 11th in Muskegon, Michigan, I'll be hosting a show with D. Ray Davis and Donnell Rawlings. Everybody know that, aka Ashley Larry from Chappelle Show. So yeah, it's going to be at the Frauenthal Center.
Oh yeah,
that's how you say it. Okay,
nice.
In Muskegon. So yeah.
Have you performed there before?
I have not.
Oh,
so
it's
I'm
a really
excited.
nice theater.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's a great place.
So I'm excited. So yeah.
Right on. Very cool. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.
We always close out with our guests giving themselves some advice for the future. So when you listen to it in the future, you'll always have that last little bit that you're kind of talking to yourself. Right. So go ahead and we'll close with you giving future Brianna some advice.
Stay focused. Don't get distracted. Just know everything will be all right. You've been through worse, so just keep going, basically. So just keep going. It's my motto. Keep going.
Nice. Hell yeah. Very cool.
Hell yeah.